What up, everybody? It is Elfie with Your Tango, and we have a very exciting new chapter for our YouTube channel. We are going to be studying celebrity astrology, birth charts, and first up is Doja Cat. Doja Cat has been seen all over the headlines recently, especially for her fashion, for her new transformation of her beauty. She's shaved her head off. She has even appeared as a cat, a literal cat, at the Met Gala. Wow. The only thing missing from that costume, honestly, was a tail for me. Wow. I think definitely needed a tail. We've also seen her be a red woman. I think this was called Doja's Inferno. We've seen a lot of different styles, a lot of new evolutions. She's gotten these new tattoos that are a bit controversial. People are saying Illuminati. Doja Cat herself says it is finding the beauty in deformities. Very interesting stuff. Not only is Doja Cat known for her fashion, she is a pop star first and foremost. She is an incredible dancer. She is at the top of her field in music, rapping, singing, so many things. She is a powerhouse, and we're going to be checking out her astrology chart, what makes Doja Cat tick. And the very exciting thing is we have Doja Cat's birth time. That is super rare. We don't get that a lot with celebrities, so we get to really dive deep into the one, the only Doja Cat. So here we have Doja's birth chart. This is my first time seeing it. Very exciting. Doja is born October 21st, 1995 at 7:14 a.m. So that makes her a Libra. I am also a Libra, so shout out all Libras. And right off the bat, I see the sun is conjunct her rising in Libra. So what does that mean? Well, the rising is part of that big three. As we know, there's the rising, the sun, and the moon. Her rising sign is in Libra. Her sun is in Libra. They are at the same place in the sky. We have that going on. And then her additional and very last part of her big three is the moon in Virgo. Now, moon is actually an incredible placement. It is right there together with her part of fortune. The part of fortune is the part of your birth chart that is fortunate. So this is just a special edition of good luck. This is a special area that, things naturally come to you. We have that in rhythm with her moon in Virgo in the 11th house. The 11th house is all about the community, all about that connecting to that external world and really shifting things, giving into a culture in a certain sense. So that is very fascinating. What else do we have cooking here? We have her Mercury also in Libra, and Mercury is the planet of the mind. We have, okay, this is spicy. So we have her Mars, the planet of physical and sexual energy. That is conjunct her Pluto, which Pluto is that dark Slytherin type of planet, if you will. It is the planet of death and transformation. So that is conjunct, which means it's the same place in the sky as her Mars. This is happening in her second house, which is the house of wealth and possessions. So we have her physical energy tied to that. And also, as we've seen of Doja, she has really embraced her sexuality publicly and for her financial advantage. And, Doja Cat is one of the sexiest stars alive, and she is not afraid to show it. We have that with the Mars in the second house, but also Mars does not only rule sexual energy, it's also just your physical energy in general. We see that drive, we see that passion to excel in those areas, to really be at the top of her field. She is making a lot of wealth. Another interesting part is that Pluto and Mars in the second house, the Pluto of her transformation is on such a physical level, and it's happening in front of everybody. It's actually part of her career is to have those physical transformations in front of everybody. And it's to her advantage, honestly. In that second house, she's going to become more wealthy. And honestly, people always say that they miss the old versions of their favorite artists. Well, Doja Cat is going to disappoint all those types of people because we are going to see her transforming for years to come. This is just a big part of Doja's life, are those physical transformations. In the second house of wealth, we also see Jupiter, which Jupiter is a planet of good luck and expansion. So that right there is all aligned for her to make a lot of money, to be connecting her physical drive, her transformations. It's all lined up there with that moon in Virgo, with the fortune part of fortune as well. we see that underneath it all, underneath all these really intense characters she plays, there's actually a very grounded woman underneath it all. She is very disciplined. Her work ethic is, we can all really learn from. Even though she has all of these alignments in her birth chart, it's really fascinating how the stars were aligned. An interesting thing about Doja is she said herself she's never had a real job. She's always been on some sort of dance team professionally. Even as a teenager, this led into a music career. And it's so interesting what parts of our lives are destined. We can even see this in the stars and how she is taking advantage of these positions and risen to the top of her fields. Ooh, this is another exciting part. Okay, so we have Neptune and Uranus, which Uranus, Uranus is the planet of originality. It's like the mad scientist planet. Then we have Neptune. It's the dreamy planet of imagination. These are both opposite her midheaven. Okay, the midheaven is associated with the 10th house of career and public standing. It is also the top point of the birth chart. So this is just essentially what is the best path for you to fulfill in your public standing. The midheaven is also in the sign of Leo, and Leo is the entertainer, right? So we have this entertainer path, which is an ideal path. These are both opposite the Neptune and Uranus. And opposition is exactly what it sounds, 180 degrees from each other. And as we know, opposites attract. There is a level of intensity. There's an intense charge just between these two parts of her chart. The midheaven, her entertainer path, even associated with that imagination, with that originality. Again, she is going to be breaking boundaries for time to come. I do not think this woman is losing her mind. This is something that everyone is saying. I really think she is just tapping into that evolution that is just in her veins. It is destined in her stars. I'm really excited to see all of these evolutions. Again, we have that Pluto and Mars in the second house. Those are all about her physical transformations. And let's just hop back to some of her fashion, because look at this fashion. Look, I mean, she is really transforming herself into so many different versions, so many different characters. It's really beautiful, and it's actually very brave to be doing this in front of everybody. As I don't know if anyone is aware, follows Doja Cat, she has received a lot of hate for these different types of transformations. I don't think they're stopping anytime soon. Let me see, what else do we have cooking in the stars for Doja? So we talked about her Pluto. All right. This is where Doja gets spicy. So we've seen a lot of her transformations. We've seen, her aesthetic, ever-evolving self. Her Venus is in Scorpio. So Venus is a planet of love and relationships. Scorpio has that edge, has that intensity, has that stinger mentality. We've seen Doja get into a lot of complications with other people. I think she even had that thing with Stranger Things, right? She wanted to get Eddie's number, and for reasons no one knows, she could not slide directly into his DMs. She had to go into an underage teenager's DMs from the show and ask for the guy's number. Well, the teenager posted all of that on TikTok, and Doja had a lot of words to say about it. And an interesting thing, there was sometimes a certain lack of accountability. Does she think she did something wrong or not? The Venus in Scorpio is going to stand their ground, and they're going to sting back. And we see that also a lot on her Twitter. We are seeing this Venus in Scorpio just snapping anywhere towards negativity. And an interesting thing about Doja is she says she uses the negativity that she gives and receives on Twitter as an outlet for her, that it does not reflect her personality and does not affect her everyday life. But she is constantly going back with every hater, more than she goes back and forth with people who love her. And that's an interesting thing. We see that Venus in Scorpio, it has that edge, it has that complexity. What's another interesting part to that Venus, it is in her first house of self. So underneath her relationships with other people, it has a lot of how she sees herself. So maybe those haters are just really hitting a strike of vulnerability, and that Scorpio in her, the way it can protect itself is to just sting back. So that's a very interesting part of her personality. Here we go. Because her moon, so we saw her moon was very lucky, right? In that 11th house, the moon is stable. It has what it takes to achieve anything, especially that part of fortune on its side. However, we can see that the moon opposite Saturn, Saturn is a planet of restriction, of discipline, of just a general area of where you're kind of hard on yourself. That is opposite Doja's moon. So even though it is connected to that part of fortune which has that luckiness, it does soften the blow of it being opposite Saturn, because Saturn is going to just bring this, in a sort of sense, self-sabotaging to your emotional relationships where you don't think you can trust people as much. There is just a level of paranoia about getting close to people. Saturn is in Pisces though, so that definitely softens the blow of Saturn as well in general. Pisces is the sign of dreams, imaginations. Saturn, that restriction, it's a little softer under the rose-colored glasses of Pisces. Opposite the moon with the part of fortune, it's not necessarily the worst thing, but it definitely affects Doja's life. Oh, okay. This is actually one of the biggest parts of Doja's chart I have just uncovered. So we have a major triangle going on between her midheaven, her sun, and her Neptune and Uranus. So the sun is the planet of ego, and that is in the 12th house. So Doja is, even exploring her sense of ego is actually going to have a spiritual element to it. That is very interesting. This is all squaring her Neptune and her Uranus. So when the sun is squaring Neptune, that can mean she cannot always exactly see things totally clear, maybe about herself. Sometimes she maybe even needs to have other people kind of help with her self-image because that Neptune, that illusionary glasses. But it's also a very romantic aspect because the Neptune just brings that dreaminess quality to the sense of ego. She can even seem like a dream to other people, maybe even like a dream come true, especially with that relation with the Neptune and the midheaven. So we can see our Neptune at the bottom squaring the sun, also squaring the midheaven. So there's just a level of, I would say a square is that 90-degree angle. So there's a sense of a disruption with it. The ego and the midheaven are squared. So that midheaven is that lucky path. There are going to be bumps along the way with her ego. I would say she is not the most understood celebrity. I think a lot of people don't really always get what she's doing, and that can definitely be due to that square. Also due to that square of the Uranus squaring the sun. As we know, Uranus is that mad scientist, that planet of originality. Squaring the sun of the ego, it's going to add a level of brashness, if you will, to that sense of self, to just like breaking the rules of not being held down by a 9-to-5, of just living on their own rhythm in a way that it does not always go in harmony with everybody else. Especially Uranus is a generational planet, and the sun of the ego, it's really specific to the person. There's just a conflict maybe even with her generation where people around her maybe don't totally understand her. So another part of Doja's massive transformations that we see going on, her Mars and the Pluto are right on the cusp of Scorpio and Sagittarius. So Scorpio is that intensity and Sagittarius is a level of impulsiveness, is the freedom sign. It just goes running. It is about traveling new bounds, breaking barriers. So her Pluto and her Mars, we're going to see that quick thinking where she might even sometimes go a little too deep, be a little too intense, have a change that's too quick that we might not necessarily understand. But there's a fearlessness to this as well that is so admirable. The way that she is fearlessly just transforming in front of all of us. It's really beautiful. So we have that all going on that cusp between Scorpio, Sagittarius. All right, everybody, so that was Doja Cat's birth chart. Very interesting. It was all lined in the stars for her to be this wonderful, transformative beauty before us. And now we're going to be moving on to our next celebrity who is also dominating the headlines, also a gem to us all, Sydney Sweeney. We all fell in love with Sydney Sweeney on Euphoria. She is about to be seen in an upcoming Spider-Man movie. She is turned from the small screen to the big screen. She's also been seen in some headlines recently due to a spicy scandal with her co-star in an upcoming movie, Glenn Powell. She perhaps may or may not be seeing him, but she is already engaged to her partner of 5 years. What is going on with this? We don't exactly know, but we're going to dive a little bit into Sydney Sweeney's cosmology. We don't have her exact birth time, but we still have a lot of other information to dive into. So let's check out if Sydney Sweeney's birth chart is as spicy as her love life. All right, here we have Sydney Sweeney's birth chart. Again, this is my first time seeing this. We do not have her time of birth. It is a bit difficult to get that with celebrities, but we still have a lot to unpack here. All right, let's get started. Okay, she is actually a bit more earthy than I thought. Her sun is in Virgo. Very interesting. Her sun, which is the planet of the ego, is conjunct the Black Lilith. So the Black Lilith is all about this dark feminine, if you will. We have the light feminine, right? We have this very kind of delicate, almost submissive, feather-like femininity, and that Black Lilith is a more primal femininity. There's an animalistic nature to this femininity. There is a protectiveness. There is a visceral, this is the type of femininity that you do not want to mess with, all right? There is a sense of darkness in this. This is conjunct her sun, which is her ego, and this is happening in Virgo. So I would say underneath this collected figure that we see, there is a sense of looking for a sense of a thrill, living a little bit on the edge. And we see that even she's kind of attracted to roles like that. We see in Euphoria, her character is really kind of exploring these dark themes of femininity without even maybe her realizing it. It's just part of her nature. So that's very interesting to see that going on in her chart. We also have her Mercury in Virgo. So this is a very calculated, in a sense, type of person, which is not a bad thing. This is someone who is really able to deal with situations in a calm, collected manner. Especially look at this. Her moon is in Capricorn. She is so earthy. She, and I would say she kind of comes off very bubbly. That may be a persona because underneath is a very, very earthy, grounded person. So we have Virgo, which is the sign of practicality. Its opposite is Pisces, which is the planet of dreams and illusions. Virgo is about seeing that spiritual side, but in the external world. So you're going to see Virgos that are not necessarily always clean, but there is an organization. There's a method to their madness. They like things in a particular way. There's a methodicalness. There's just a sense of rational and grounded energy going on. And then we have Capricorn, which is the moon. Capricorn is the sign of finances, of public standing, of really going and getting what you want out of life in those realms. The moon is the planet of emotions and the subconscious. So Sydney Sweeney is really motivated by advancing in her public career. And I would say the moon being in Capricorn is a bit aloof. It could be hard to connect emotionally to Sydney Sweeney because she is so logical, but luckily we have the Neptune actually conjunct her conjunct her moon. They are close enough. They're not a complete conjunction, but they are extremely close. Neptune is the planet of imagination. So that's going to add a level of softness, a level of dreaminess to this moon in Capricorn, which without it, it might be a little strong-headed, it might be a little less imaginative for sure. So this is going to give her a dreamy quality. These are all also in a trine to her sun. So that is a beautiful placement. A trine is essentially when there are earth signs or fire signs that are happening in a chart consecutively in that way. So we have 3 earths in the zodiac, which is Capricorn, Virgo, and Taurus. So if you have certain planets in those areas, those are going to be a trine. Just like Sagittarius, Leo, and Aries, those are all going to be in a trine. Libra, Aquarius, Gemini, those are going to be a trine. So because we have such that earth dominant there is a trine, there is a harmony between that Neptune, that moon, and her sun, and Black Lilith. I don't see too many difficult aspects. Okay, here we go. So this is very interesting. We have her Venus. It's gonna be in Scorpio, of course. Venus in Scorpio. Oh, we also have her Mars in Scorpio. Okay, so this is where we get the edge to see Sydney Sweeney. So we have this very methodical, logical person, but there's a sense of her the way she physically carries herself it's gonna ooze sexuality with that Mars and Scorpio. This is one of the most sexual placements of them all. These people, they say, have a sexual drive that could be endless, but this is also in their physical way they carry themselves. There is just that mysterious air. There's something that's alluring that is gonna pull you in. She seems like she could be the girl next door, but there is gonna be that edge to her. And that Venus in Scorpio, luckily, it's leaning a little more towards Libra, so it's going to be a little more on the lighter side. It's going to be a little more fair versus going all out in a fight, especially with the Mars in Scorpio, that physical energy in that Scorpio energy, which is Scorpio represents death and transformation, but a Scorpio, it just is going to dive deeper than anybody else into a certain subject. They're going to push themselves to the fullest. Even some of her scenes in Euphoria, she really emotionally goes there. And I think I've even seen some things with her talking to the director where originally the scenes were not going to go as deep, but Sydney Sweeney really wanted to explore Cassie's breakdown to another level. And she's actually very proud of Cassie's breakdown, especially in season 2. That is all going to really be that Scorpio energy in that Venus, in that Mars. We have Pluto really close by in Sagittarius. Unfortunately, we don't have her time of birth, so we don't know what houses all of these planets are in. The houses are some of the best parts of a birth chart, so even with your own, make sure you go find what time you're born, and make sure if you drop some comments below if you are seeing some of these placements in yourself, you have any sort of questions, or if you know Sydney Sweeney's birth time, definitely drop that below and we could do a full chart exploring it. I don't know what you have to do to get her birth time. I do not know. Just get it for us, okay? All right, and that is Sydney Sweeney, everybody. Next up, we have another actor. We are gonna just throw a curveball here. We have an extraordinary gentleman. He has been seen on The Last of Us. He's been seen on The Mandalorian. Please welcome to the cosmology stage, Pedro Pascal. So here we have Pedro Pascal. Here he is premiering his niece at the Met Gala. And he is really known as America's dad right now. Fun fact, he is from Chile, but I think that is a beautiful American story. Our father of this nation is an immigrant. That's what this nation is built on. So here's Pedro Pascal. One of the amazing qualities that is part of his reputation is that he is just a dream to work with. People have the best stories. They love to just be around him, be in his presence, and especially in a day and age where left and right, we are just expecting the Me Too movement. It is so refreshing to have a wholesome, just genuinely good guy rising to the top. So let's see if that birth chart is as wholesome as that reputation. So Pedro Pascal is born April 2nd, 1975. Birth time unknown for now, but that makes him an Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It is the pioneer. It is someone who is going to lead the group, who is going to jump in first, who is going to show the way for everybody else. That Aries, right away, I am seeing it is opposite that Pluto in Leo. That is a very intense energy, especially for the sun, which is the ego. The sun is, just as the sun is the center of our universe, you can think of the sun as the center of someone's birth chart's universe. So the sun in Aries opposite that Pluto in Libra. The Pluto in Libra is about the Pluto itself is all about transformations, rebirth. So there is something in Pedro Pascal's life and his ego that has been transformative that maybe we don't necessarily see. One beautiful thing about some aspects of Pluto is that people who have these really intense positions, if they have mastered them, they seem like martial artists of the world in a sense of wholesomeness. Like underneath that wholesomeness, there's a great Carl Jung quote to kind of go over this, and it is about the highest branches of a tree that reach to heaven also have roots that reach to the lowest parts of hell. So those who have mastered that sense of light do know the shadows and the darkness and the darkest parts of being a human being. Not necessarily that they exist within yourself, but these are circumstances that you've experienced and maybe overcome and chiseled and chose the path of light, the path of being wholesome, of being a good figure, of maintaining that. And I like to really think, we see wholesome people as, oh, they're innocent or something, but it's like people are actively making that choice. These are spirit warriors amongst us, people who are really choosing to be good examples, to be good role models. These are really angels walking amongst us. So we have that sun opposite that Pluto. Right away, that's telling me that's someone who has dealt with a lot of extremities through life, and they have chosen the other side of that. And that is really, really beautiful. We also have the Aries sun opposite Pluto. The Aries sun is intense with the Pluto opposition. That is also going to be really intense. And we have both of those squaring a moon in Capricorn. So a moon in Capricorn is going to be really calm, cool, and collected. As we were talking about, actually with Sydney Sweeney, she also has her moon in Capricorn. Capricorn is a sign of finances. It is a sign of work. They find a lot of structure within their lives through those areas. The moon is the planet of the subconscious, of your emotions. So a moon in Capricorn, these are kind of emotionally aloof people. Honestly, emotions are not necessarily their strong suit. They much rather be useful in their lives. These people, even some of their love languages can be just being useful in people's lives, showing that they care in these small ways that you might not even realize. Versus someone like a moon in Leo is going to be more touch orientated in terms of a love language. Moon in Capricorn is a bit more aloof. An interesting thing, so like I was saying before, we have the moon squaring Pluto, and it squares a 90-degree angle. This is a disruption of energy. So a Pluto squaring the moon, that has the sun opposite Pluto. The moon squaring Pluto is an intense placement. This is someone who has dealt with emotional extremities in their life within themselves. And again, going back to that wholesome reputation of the way he is so wonderful on set, it's like he is really channeling these intensities in himself into his work. We see him really choosing very intense roles that are pushing him to boundaries emotionally. The Last of Us is an extremely riveting series on the edge of our seats. He portrayed that game so well. I'm going to say he's really mastered how to utilize these difficult placements into his work, into channeling them into the right avenues. The beautiful thing to keep in mind about a birth chart is you can see difficulties like squares, for example. These are things, they can be seen as challenges, but there are just like a connection of intensity as well. Learning how to master those things, that you can really come out on the other side where these types of things don't control you, you can control them. So even learning about astrology is a great way to even just understand the elemental experiences within you. What are those energies, and learning how to place them properly. And that's even where the birth time comes into place, because we could know so much more about where exactly he is channeling these things. I'm super curious just what houses that these planets actually been falling. We do not have that information though. So let us carry on. We see the Venus in Taurus. So Venus in Taurus, honestly, Venus is at home in Taurus. Taurus is ruled by Venus. This is a lovely, lovely placement. Venus is the planet of love and relationships. Taurus is the sign of the bull, but it is ruled by Venus. So there is a sensuality to it. There is a kindness, a softness to the sturdiness. It is the dreamiest earth sign there is. And Taurus is all about Taurus is about being in it for the long haul. They can sometimes even stay in relationships in the Venus and Taurus. They can stay in relationships a little too long, even after their expiration date, because they just don't want to leave. This is one of the most loyal signs in the zodiac. Venus and Taurus, I don't know too much about Pedro Pascal's love life, but I would say he's probably has been with someone for a long time, or he has been single for a long time, because he's really choosing which person he wants to be with, and he's being very clear. And even just finding that one mate, I would not see this person jumping from relationships way too quickly. So this person, that Taurus and Venus, that is a really lovely placement. It also is a semi-sextile with Saturn in Cancer. So that is a nice placement. There is just maybe a methodical element to the way they even choose their love and relationships, but they have excellent boundaries because of that good connection with the Saturn in Cancer. Cancer is all about being intuitive with other people. Saturn is the planet of responsibility and restriction, and that is all in a good harmony with Venus. So what's so interesting is that Pedro Pascal has a lot of intensity going on within himself. The Venus, his way of relationships are actually very harmonious, which we've seen. Very interesting. So we have Mars in Aquarius, and I think that's our first air sign. Okay, we have Pluto in Libra, but I think this is the only other air sign. And so we have a lot of fire, a lot of intensity, and we have that Aquarius air to kind of even it out. And so that's a really nice placement. We're going to see Pedro Pascal, kind of the way he carries his physical, sexual energy is kind of marching to the beat of his own drum, especially with that Venus in Taurus and that Mars in Aquarius. I would say that is another placement for being particular about his mate, particularly about the person he's with. Mars in Aquarius, he can be probably the most likable person in the room, but he himself just stays a bit detached. He's not the guy at every single party, but he's the guy you want at every single party. He's a little more selective, but that doesn't mean he's not likable. That's just a standard Aquarius thing. We have Mercury in Pisces, and that's very close to the part of fortune. So that Mercury, the planet of mind, is right there aligned with that part of fortune in Pisces. Pisces is a sign that's all about the dreams, the imagination, those other spiritual realms. It is opposite Virgo, which is all about finding the spiritual in the external realm. So Pisces is all internal. They have a very deep connection to their senses, to the way they just absorb information. And that is the planet of his mind. So Pedro Pascal, I mean, he might secretly be a poet or something. With this type of placement, this is someone who really thinks in a sort of poetic sense of way. I mean, I bet this man writes the best love letters. I bet he just is, when he is in love, he is just constantly thinking, almost feeling as if he is with that person of his dreams, and really finding that sense of dreaminess for a long time with that Venus in Taurus. It's really a lovely birth chart. We have Jupiter also opposite the Pluto, which we would know more information about this if we had the houses, but Jupiter is the planet of good luck and good fortune. We have Pluto, which is the transformations. It's interesting. I don't know exactly when Pedro Pascal blew up. I think it's kind of recently. It's something that he's had to work towards for a while. Really find that right transformation to get it right to blow up on a bigger scale. So that could be tied into that. That definitely could be tied into that. Let me see if we have any other interesting things about Pedro Pascal. One last thing we're seeing here. So this is going back into the kind of intense struggles of Pedro Pascal on the inside. We have the moon also squaring Mercury and Jupiter. So the moon, the planet of emotions, squaring Mercury in Pisces. So Pisces is that dreamy mind because of Mercury is in there as well, versus the moon in Capricorn, which is very stoic, very stable, very logical. So there can even be a disconnect in where his mind perceives things in a dreamy way, and his emotions is kind of rejecting that, or not necessarily connecting because it sees things in an illogical, detached way. So there's senses of Pedro Pascal that are very passionate, very dreamy, and there is also this grounded side. A really wonderful chart. Honestly, Pedro Pascal, thank you for existing. Thank you, universe, for lining up these beautiful stars to make the Pedro Pascal in front of us. And that is the end of our celebrity birth chart readings. We had Doja Cat, we had Sydney Sweeney, we had Pedro Pascal. Make sure you drop a comment below if you want to see a certain celebrity. We would love and be happy to diagnose those people. Once again, if you also have a birth time, we would need some verification, some accuracy to that. We can't just be throwing out times of birth without the accuracy, because we really want to dive into this astropsychology of these celebrities. Let us know if you know any birth times, any new celebrities to get into. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, because you never know who we're going to be covering next, and you definitely want to be a part of it. I am Elfie, your host. This was your Tango. See you guys next time.